Okay, we are joined by our first Hall of Famer of the night, and that is Red Farmer. Like I said, if you have a question for any of our panelists today, please make your way up to the front and ask into the microphone. But I'll start. Red, just top-line thoughts of tonight's evening, and you were the star of the show with a great speech. How was this evening for you?
You like that speech? If I had more time, I had a lot more to talk about, but they told me to cut it down to 6 minutes, and I said, I can't talk 75 years of racing in 6 minutes.
I loved it. Was tonight everything you hoped for? You mentioned how long you were waiting for this and how this was the pinnacle of your career.
I still can't understand you.
Was tonight everything you had hoped for and what you thought as you dreamed about tonight and the pinnacle of your career?
You don't never know what it's going to be like, when you get something like this NASCAR Hall of Fame. It was quite spectacular, and I really was. I had some stories. I had to miss some of them that I wanted to talk about, but they cut me on my time limit. But it was still, this is the NASCAR Hall of Fame. I've been racing NASCAR for 70 years. I started at 53 in the beach course. So at that time, it was my first NASCAR race, and I broke a right rear wheel and didn't do nothing in the race. I didn't know if I'd ever run a NASCAR race in my life. And here I am 70 years later in the NASCAR Hall of Fame.
It's fantastic. Thank you, Red. If you have a question for Red, please raise your hand, and we'll, like I said, the microphone's up front, and we'll open the floor to questions for Red. We'll start with Alex.
What were the stories that you wanted to tell and didn't get a chance to?
Alex asks, are there any stories that you would like to tell now that you didn't have a chance to tell on stage?
I still having trouble understanding you. I'm 90% deaf. I've been listening to these damn race cars for 75 years, and my ears are bad, and I have trouble understanding a lot of it. So
good.
Let me get over here next to you.
Are there any questions, or any stories you'd like to tell now that you didn't have a chance to tell on stage?
Well, in 1956, when I was talking about when I won my first modified championship in NASCAR. When I went to Daytona, down there with Big Bill France at the Princess Athena Hotel in '56 to the awards banquet, Buck Baker was sitting to the right of me as a cup champion. I was the modified champion, and the guy to the left of me was Ralph Earnhardt Jr.'s grandpa. But I didn't get to say that. I wanted to say that, but here I was down at my first championship and sitting there with Ralph Earnhardt and Buck Baker.
Ties it all together. Any other questions for, we'll go to Zach. And then
yes. Red, you had mentioned that Talladega Short Track season opener is March 27th. What are your prospects for this season, and what keeps you getting after it each year?
You mentioned the Talladega Short Track. What are your prospects for this season, and what keeps you going?
Well, we ran, I built a new car during the winter down in Chris Belichick's shop down there, and my two grandsons have got cars in there. We got 6 race cars in the shop, and I sold my Rocket and GRT car and used that money to buy a new Black Diamond chassis that they had been racing before. And I kind of worked all winter since the last Talladega race in October to get that car ready for the Ice Bowl. Then I popped up and had to be in the hospital twice with heart surgery 3 weeks ago. And the car was all ready to go, and I wanted to run it something terrible, but I couldn't. So I went up to the racetrack a week after I got out of the hospital, and we took the car up to Talladega Short Track, and I got a guy named Josh Atkins to drive it for me, a buddy of ours. And there was 352 cars at the racetrack, 352 cars in the pits, and there was 54 cars in my class, which was a Crate 604. Super late models. And Josh got a pretty good qualifying time with the car, first time he'd been on the racetrack. And in the qualifying race, which they took the top 4 out of 12 cars in the qualifying race, he finished second, which gave him a good starting spot in the main event, which is the 40-lap race. He started sixth in it, got up on the wheel, and he finished third. Drove a hell of a race. So he finished third in the car that I was hoping I could drive. So that car is going to be ready to go on March the 17th at Talladega Short Track. They're opening up a race called the Bama Bash, the 17th, 18th, and 19th. And that gives me 2 months to try to recuperate from this heart surgery. And my prospects right now that I'm going to be there to run that car myself, and I know it's a good car. So I'm looking forward to racing in March at Talladega Short Track. And as far as my plans, I'm going to tell you, I got one plan. I'm going to wear out, not rust out.
Red, you had some one-liners in your speech earlier about racing and being in the ARCA series was like an electric chair with a drunk on the switch, things like that. Can you explain the differences through the years of racing through 75 years back then versus right now, and what you do? What's the difference between then and now for racing for Red Farmer?
Yes, is there anything, can you explain the differences between racing when you first started to now and how the racing has progressed throughout your career?
Money. That is a big difference, money. What they spend for one car nowadays, I could race 2 or 3 years ago with the same equipment. It's just everything has got so far ridiculous out of price as far as, and this year it seems like it's doubled. So the fuel, the parts, and everything else, it just costs so much money nowadays to race compared to what it was years ago when we started. Of course, the money was different too. We didn't have as much money as you got to have now. But like I said, our cars that we raced back in the early 50s, let's say, we had maybe $6,000 in the whole complete car. Now, if you have a super late model dirt car like we run at Talladega, you could have $60,000 to $75,000 in that car. The prices of everything just gone ridiculous. Right now, I bought a new car here a couple of weeks ago, just a chassis, just a frame with the front suspension and a quick change in it, and it was $18,000 just for a chassis, no motor, transmission, the drive shaft, no seat in it or anything. And 20 years ago, you could have bought that same car for $5,000. So everything just keeps going up. On our tires right now have gone up. Last year, our tires cost $170 for a Hoosier tire for the race car. This year, they've gone to $215. They went up $45 on one tire. So now, if you go to that short track and race and buy 4 tires, you spend $1,000 just for 4 tires and pay the tax on them. So it's just ridiculous. And the fuel, if you've got a super late model that's got 13 or 14 to 1 compression, you've got to get 114 octane fuel. It's $12, $14 a gallon. So everything has just gone ridiculous. I don't know how the short tracks are going to continue running if the prices just keep going up, because the purses don't go up that much. The price of racing goes up, but the purses don't.
How do you keep doing it? And what's your driving force to keep doing it? How long do you keep racing?
Why do you keep doing it, and what is your driving force behind keeping to
Well, I just love racing. I mean, I just love racing. I love to compete. When I go up there, I've got 3 of my grandsons that I race with every weekend that I get to race with, and that's a big enjoyment right there. But I just love to race. It's just like maybe you like to go play golf on Saturday with your buddies, or Saturday to go out there and play golf or something like that because you love golf. I love racing. It's in my blood. I've been doing it for 75 years. I started in 1948. And I still enjoy the competition, the friendship and everything, along with the other people in the pits, get along with everybody. It's just a kind of a family deal. My wife Judy sells my T-shirts and hats and stuff like that, make a little pocket money to buy some tires with. And it's just kind of a family deal. I got two of my grandsons parked right next to me in the pits. We all sit there like a family, more or less, and just enjoy it. I still do. I look forward to it. I can't hope I'm in good enough health to be able to get there in March and get in that car.
Red, who's your favorite driver of all time?
Huh?
Who's your favorite driver of all time?
You talk about somebody that I've been racing for 75 years. There's so many good drivers that I've raced with. It's unbelievable. In 1998, when NASCAR voted on the 50 greatest drivers in their first 50 years of racing, and I was put on that list of the 50 greatest drivers, I raced against 49 of them that was on that list. And they were all great drivers, and they wouldn't have been on it. But I've always said before that I thought A.J. Foyt was the greatest driver that was, for simple reason. A.J. could get in a wheelbarrow and win races with it. He won in everything he got into: NASCAR cars, Indy cars, Le Mans cars, Indianapolis, anywhere he ran, sprint cars, midgets. Everything A.J. got in, he could win in on dirt, asphalt, road courses, or everything. I mean, there's a lot of great drivers, but they're great on the mile and a half. Some of them are great on super speedways. Some of them are great at Martinsville. But you get a driver that's good everywhere, then you've got a driver. So I always thought A.J. Foyt was my best driver, but then here comes Tony Stewart. Tony did the same thing. He won the championship in 3 different divisions, 3 different type of cars in 1 year. So he's won the championship in everything, but he could drive anything that's got a steering wheel on it and a gas pedal. So I put Tony Stewart and A.J. up there. Now you got this kid, Kyle Larson, come along and look like he's in the same class. He can drive anything and win races with it: road course, dirt, super speedways, asphalt, mile and a half. So there's always good drivers coming along. So it's hard to pick them out. You know, when I raced against Lee Petty and Buck Baker, Fireball Roberts, Curtis Turner, Joe Ledley, you know, and some of the great drivers back in the 50s and 60s, they was great drivers then. Then we had great drivers through the 60s and 70s. So that's kind of a hard decision. You know, it's to pick one that's the best driver. I think you got to pick a driver that can drive anything on any type of tracks.
Red, thank you so much for your time. Congratulations on this well-deserved honor, and I hope you have a great rest of the night.